Hello everybody, my name is Alex Drops, and I have a very interesting concept for you today. I'm sure most of you are familiar with WorldEdit. It is a feature that's available through single-player commands or maybe server plugins. Now what I've tried to do today is recreate WorldEdit using vanilla Minecraft. And so if you're familiar at all with it, you'll know that it starts with a wooden axe, and that's called a magic wand. So I'm going to pull out my magic wand, and you'll see a few commands appear at the bottom, and I also get a piece of sponge. Now let me explain what WorldEdit basically does. WorldEdit, at least my version, allows you to select a region of any 2 points and fill that with any block you're choosing. Or in my version, you only get one choice of block, but that's a work in progress. So let's go back to these commands. You'll see position 1, position 2, set 1, and set 0. We're going to start by selecting position 1, and over by this sign is our origin point, so you want to select the smallest point first. So it says select position 1. So what I'm going to do is take out my piece of sponge. I'm going to walk over to where I'm going to place it, and there is a ridiculous amount of lag, and I apologize for that, but there is a lot going on. And let's say I want to place my block right here. I place the sponge there, and it says at the bottom, set position 1 at 332.5. And now position 2, let's set it over here. Let's build up a few blocks. So we're going to go down here and select position 2. I'm going to place the block again. And at the bottom it says set position 2 at 834.8. And of course those are my coordinates. And now we have two options here. Set 1 sets it to stone and set 0 sets it to air. Of course this is already air, so we're just going to hit set 1. And you see we get a nice ginormous stone structure. It's completely filled in. All the blocks in the region are indeed filled. And of course whenever I'm done with that, I can just hit set 0 and it will take it all away. Let's also try one more example. So position 1 again. We'll set it right here at 132.3, and we'll just set position 2 over here at 1032.8. And let's set this all to stone. And there we go. Now I do want to apologize before you get your hopes too far up, because this is not as good as it seems. There is an incredibly large amount of work going on below this little structure. A few little things I want to point out before this. Let's get rid of all this first. Firstly, you'll see I have a 10 by 10 platform here, and then a little circle around it. Now you can only do this on this 10 by 10 platform, and it goes up 3 blocks, so this is basically 10 by 10 by 3 high. Secondly, as you saw, there is tons of lag, and instead of just talking about it, I'm going to show you why. For this 10 by 10 by 3 area, this is the amount of redstone I had to build. Now, if you can't already guess, this runs off the use of a few multiple things, and of course set block to place the blocks. And the only thing that's really unique about this, other than a bunch of set block commands setting with, is how I determine the coordinates. And this is quite honestly what I need the most help with. If I didn't say already, I have a few ideas on how to make this a lot smaller, but I also want to get the idea out there because I don't think I can compact this that much from what it is now. So I'm going to take you through each part and explain what it's doing. This is take number 7, trying to explain this monstrosity in all its glory. So I'm going to take you through how this is working, and it's going to be a fun process, let me tell you what. Okay, so the first thing that's going on here is I have a custom attribute for my wooden axe, +1 max health, and this clock right here will test for a player with a higher health than normal. And if it tests for a player, it'll simply give out an output, and these are all tell raws. So if it tests for a player, it'll put up a menu of WorldEdit, and each of those have a custom click event, so when I click on them, it'll place a redstone block as an output somewhere. That's all the simple stuff. Now this part, the part I hate, the part that's ugly and way too big, and I had to explain it now. The problem was, with my build, was how on earth I could determine position 1 and position 2 of the player. It sounds a lot harder than it really is, because I need exact coordinates, and I also need a way to store those coordinates. So my way to store them was pretty simple. I have x1, y1, and z1, and respectively x2, y2, and z2. Now what I needed to do was find a way to set their value to whatever value I needed. I'm going to go ahead and set the time to day. So for example, if I place my block here and I'm under position 1, if I clicked on position 1, I needed to set my x1 to 1, my y1 to 32, and my z1 to 1. And if I'm over here, it needs to set my x1 to 10, my y1 to 32, and my z1 to 10. So that's pretty simple, but I don't know how to do it. Well, I did know how to do it, but it required all of this space. Basically, if you couldn't guess, I am testing for sponge blocks. Each one of these giant pods is a single height level. On this side, I believe we have position 2, and on this side we have position 1. And these are all the Y32 coordinates, these are all the Y33s, and this is all the Y34s. So if I select position 1, it's going to take away this redstone block, activate this giant clock, and test for 300 separate blocks. Because remember, it's 10 by 10 by 3. So in each one of these, of course, it's just testing for the block, in each specific coordinate that I had to hand code, which really sucked. Now the only fun part of this whole thing is the output, and that's fun because it is a bunch of stacked minecart with command blocks, and I use that, instead of having 20 command blocks, I could condense it into one, with a bunch of different little sub-commands within each command block. Now whenever this output is activated, it'll do a few things. First thing it'll do is it'll destroy that sponge that I placed up there. It'll set it to air. It'll also stop this clock so I don't have eternal lag. It'll also say what position I placed my block at. But the most important thing is what I kind of explained earlier. If they tested for a block at x is 5, z is 5, it'll set my x1 score to 5, my y score to 32, and my z score to 5. So it sounds pretty simple. If I click position 2 and it tests for a block, it'll set my position x2, y2, z2 to whatever block it tested for the sponge at. And so using that method, I can determine the x1, y1, and z1 of a player, and is also position 2 data. So now I have 6 objective scores, and I have to figure out how I can convert that into a structure. And that's where this part comes in. So this giant part is all for stone. If I click on the set 1, it'll set it all to stone, and that's what this is for. And this is all for set 0 or set air. If I click set 1, it's going to activate all of these, and these are all also test 4s. These are all 300 test 4s. Right here I am testing for a player with a custom score of each thing. Now these scores might confuse you, they confused me, and it took a while to figure out the right combination to get it to work. But essentially, it is testing for a score, an x1 score of a maximum of 4, a z1 score of a maximum of 32, or a y1 score rather, a z1 score of a maximum of 8, and all of the x2, y2, and z2s are all minimums. And now, that might not make any sense, but if I have a block here for position 1 and a block here for position 2, I want the game to set the blocks with a maximum of this block and a minimum of this block, because you don't want it to go over this one or under this one, of course. So it'll be all within this region of blocks. Now, the one other thing I might point out, I guess, let me get around to here. This is all, of course, set block. That's how I placed all the blocks. I'm sure you guessed that from when you saw it. The other score I have in here is a score reset, which is basically, if I didn't reset all the scores, it would just, they would remain activated and I couldn't set the same block twice. So I changed the reset score and I change it back. And the only reason I'm telling you that is because if you download this map and look at it, I do not want you to be confused what this random score is. So rather than continue to hopelessly explain how on earth this works, if you didn't understand it, I encourage you to take a download and kind of play around with it. But I also want to address some of the flaws in this. So I'm sure you have guessed that the biggest flaw in this design is its enormous size, and you would be correct in saying that, with a close second being the lag that it has. But I'm going to present a few problems and possible solutions, and maybe we can work together, depending on how much attention this gets, and we can somehow get this into a practical thing that you could plop into your world. Now, the first thing that I needed to do, like I said, was test for a player's position. There is no way in my mind that I can think of to do this without a block. The normal test for does not work, because remember, it has to use a radius, so I couldn't use a radius of 1 if I wanted to test for this block, because it would detect me if I was here, 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 or here, or here. It really just wouldn't work. A test for would not work. A test for block would, but it requires this ginormous structure. Now, I know there is some way, someone knows a way in which this can be condensed. There just has to be some other solution, and I, for the life of me, could not figure it out, so I just went ahead with this. There must be something, and if I had to ask one thing, it would be to figure out a way to detect a player's position without using tons of test for blocks. Just a more efficient way with less lag, somehow manage to do that. If we can do that, I think this idea, this concept, has a lot more potential. Now, the second problem, it's not as great, and here is the real issue, though. There is no possible way to set a block right there unless I have a set block command. There's no other way to place a block in Minecraft. So that means I need an individual command block for each separate grid, each little unit of my grid, to place a block there. And that's, of course, what I did. I have 300 blocks, each set block, respectively. Now, the only possible solution I could think of for this, I didn't actually apply it, was using, there are a few filters out there in which I used. Well, I didn't actually use a filter for this, but you can use a structure to command block filter, and you can also use a structure to a single command block filter. I have used them before, and basically it's just like these, but you summon a bunch of minecart command blocks, and they will spawn a structure based off one mother command block. And how would this be applicable at all? Well, what I could do is, since I have 300 blocks here that don't need to be all visible at once, I could only spawn in the set blocks that I need when I need them. So if I'm setting in a block from, let's see, x1, z1 right here, to here, over here, I would only spawn in the set blocks required for this tiny part. I wouldn't spawn in all of these. This would all be very possible, but the problem is with the standard set block filters that are out there, they can only support 200 minecart command blocks. You can't summon in 1,000 different command blocks on these. It just wouldn't work. And so again, I'm asking if anybody has any ideas on how to possibly shrink this down or reduce the lag in any way. I feel like maybe this idea has some potential, and we could get WorldEdit in vanilla Minecraft, which would be the coolest thing in the world. So I would like to thank you all for watching, and if you stay tuned for that boring and painful explanation, I thank you. And if you have any ideas, do not hesitate to let me know, and I will keep you posted, and of course leave this map within the description. You have a great day, and I'll see you next time.